Hello and welcome to our monthly orientation training for OU Campus. My name is Barb McQuillan and I'm a software trainer here over at Omni Update. In this session, we're going to overview some basic end user functions. During this presentation, I'll be working in a sandbox environment, but if you're an existing customer, you can follow along in your own instance as the platform functionalities will be the same. I'll be logged in as a level 8 user, so please be aware that depending upon your user level and individual user permissions, you may be restricted from some of the functionalities I'm going to be showing you today. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode as this session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, you may submit it by clicking on the Q&A section located at the bottom of your screen. Please note the Q&A section may not be available if you're viewing this webcast through the browser. You may need to install and view the webcast through Zoom extension for access to the Q&A section. I'll attempt to address all of the questions as we go along, and there will be a Q&A section at the end of the presentation where I will answer as many remaining questions as time allows. If I do not get a chance to answer your question during the webcast, I will email an answer to you afterwards. So with all that said, let's begin. As we kind of jump in, let's talk about what we're about to talk about, and we'll have a lovely agenda. So we're going to start by talking about how you would log into OU Campus. We'll give a little bit of an overview of the interface. We'll talk about some basic page editing, creating new content, uploading content, and then we'll wrap up today with a Q&A at the end. So enough with PowerPoint, let's jump into it and actually get into OU Campus. So I'm currently looking at my Galena sandbox. For my particular implementation, I do have a full site here. So as I kind of scroll through it, let's say, for example, I am responsible, say, for the Galena Gophers page inside the athletics section. So clicking there, I take a look at this page, pretty basic, just a chunk of text. Maybe I want to add some additional things to it, make it pop a little bit. So as the end user responsible for this particular page, I will navigate to this page on the live site, and I will log in directly here using the direct edit link. The direct edit link may be in a different location depending upon your implementation, but for me here, in my sandbox, the last updated date down here in the footer is going to be my direct edit link. For some of you out there, your direct edit link may be the little copyright symbol. It may be a transparent box in the corner on the left or on the right. It may be a little bit of decoration or flair that has been created somewhere inside the footer. But generally speaking, in the footer, that's where you'll find your direct edit link. So clicking on the last updated date, it will drop me off in my login screen. I'm going to go ahead and log in as my level 8 user. I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger. So you'll notice when I'm logged into the system, I do have these bars across the top. The big blue bar and the gray bar, we'll talk more about that. But what I want to point out at this moment is I'm still looking at that Galena Gophers page. I didn't need to navigate through an internal folder structure. Because I navigated directly to the live page, it dropped me off right here. We will talk more about this page and all the things that you can do, but let's talk a little bit about the interface itself. So up across the top, I have this big blue bar. This is my global navigation bar. My dashboard brings me over to my dashboard section so I can take a look at different gadgets that I have listed here. Under content, these are the different regions that I have access to making edits. So my pages will bring me to my pages list view. So I'll be able to see all the different folders and files that live inside OU Campus at this level. Because my user is level 8 and because of my specific user permissions, I also have access to the assets section. This will bring me to my asset manager. Again, just another list view that shows me all the assets available inside the system. And then finally, again, because of my user level and my user permissions, I also have access to the recycle bin. This will show me all of the different files and pages that have been recycled. Next over, I have my different reports. These reports will tell me information about the pieces of content I have access to. So if I take a look at my checked out content, you'll notice I have nothing here yet. This only shows me my information. It will not show me information site-wide. My add-ons are my different links that my administration have created that are kind of like universal breadcrumb, or universal bookmarks. So if there's a specific style guide or something like that, your administration may have added it into your add-ons up here. Continue across the top, I have this lovely little magnifying glass. This is my global search. So as I'm looking for content, for images, for things like that, I can search names or do an advanced search here and kind of drill down onto the different types of content that I want to find. This again will only show me content that I have access to. Continuing down, hovering over my name, I have my settings option. This will bring me into my individual settings for my user. So I can make edits to, say, my phone number, my email address, and so on. This is also where I would go ahead and log out. And then finally, at the end over here, I have my different help icons. So support will bring me over to the Omni Update support site, my community and feedback forum, and then details on release notes are all available here. The gray bar directly underneath that, that is my breadcrumb. So let's go ahead and just quickly navigate back to that page we were looking at before. So by hovering over content and going to pages, I'm going to end up on the pages list view. At the very top, I have this little house. If I click on the house, or if I'm already landing where the house is, I'm going to be at the root of my site. So right now for my user, all of these individual folders are blue and they're clickable links. Depending upon the way your implementation is set up, you may see some of these folders or files as black text that are not links. That means you do not have access to that particular section or that particular page. Should you need access to one of those, contact your school administration so that they can set up the access for you. So we were looking at a page that was inside the athletics section. So I'm going to click inside this athletics section here. And we were originally on that Gophers page. So I'll click on that Gophers. And again, I'm dropped off at the same page. So taking a look at this gray bar again, my breadcrumbs, I can see I'm inside content. I'm inside the pages. I'm inside my folder called athletics. And I'm sitting on this page called Gophers. So it'll give me a good idea of where I am inside the system. All the way on the other side of that gray bar, I can see over here on the right-hand side, I have Galena listed. That is the site I'm currently in. Depending upon your particular implementation, you may have multiple sites as part of your account. So if you need to toggle between different sites, it'll be a drop-down here. All right, so that gives us a good idea of what's going on inside the system. Let's talk about on this page itself. So directly underneath my breadcrumb, I have these big buttons. This is my page actions toolbar. So clicking on preview, it will give me a preview of what this page is going to look like on my live production site. Clicking on edit, I see a very similar page, but now you'll notice I have these big green buttons. These are going to be my editable regions. They allow me to go in and make edits and changes to the page. My source is going to open up source code. Again, depending upon your user level and your permissions, you may or may not see that button. And then I have a properties option here. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that in just a little bit. This next button over here is a little light bulb. So this light bulb is part of our check-in, check-out system. So this is one of the unique features of OU Campus that makes sure that anything that makes it to your live site is the pristine, perfect condition when it gets there. So any of the pages inside OU Campus will start off by being checked into the system. So they're available to anyone. If I click on this light bulb, the page becomes checked out to me. The light bulb's now turned on, and it is now locked to everyone else inside the system. So no one else can come into this page and make changes or edits. You'll also notice by clicking on that light bulb, I added some additional options up here at the top. When I'm finished with this page, or if I didn't mean to check it out, I can always click the light bulb again, check it back into the system. Now it's available for anyone. So let's actually make some edits onto this page. By clicking on the main content editable region button, you'll notice that that particular section is now highlighted. The background is still there, but it's grayed out, and I now have this toolbar across the top. You're also going to notice that the page automatically checked out to me as soon as I click that button. It's because I'm in a section where I could be making edits. The system wants to make sure that no one else is getting in here and making changes at the same time so we don't accidentally publish out things that aren't ready yet. So from here, let's go ahead and make some wonderful changes for it. So let's say up here at the top, I want to put in an image. So I want to make sure that the image is kind of on the left and I have all of my text filling in on the right. So I'm going to place my cursor where I'd like the image to be, and there are a couple of different ways that I can insert the image. From the toolbar, you'll notice any of these buttons here, if I hover over them, it'll give me a little bit of description of what it is. So I have a little picture that looks like a mountain with a little sun in the background. That's my Insert/Edit Image button. If I click on that, I'll get this pop-up. I can also simply right-click where my cursor is and click Insert Edit Image. Either way, it's going to get me to the same pop-up. Source is going to be the image that I would like to insert, and I have a little Browse button over on the side. That's the folder with the magnifying glass. When I start to browse, you'll see up at the top, underneath the title, I have essentially a set of breadcrumbs here. So I'm inside Sites, I'm inside my Galena site, I'm inside a folder called _resources, I'm inside a folder called images, and I'm inside a folder called campus. This particular kind of default location is set by administration. So from here, I can choose any of my images. So maybe I want to take a look at, say, the library. I get a little preview on the right-hand side with some additional information down here at the bottom. If this is the image that I wanted, in the bottom right-hand corner, I'll go ahead and click Insert. And you're going to notice something interesting here. Inside Source, I don't have the file path. I instead have this kind of weirdo tag going on here. So these double curly braces with a letter and a string of numbers, this is a dependency tag. Inside OU Campus, any content, so any images, any documents, any pages, they're going to be tracked by the dependency manager. It's essentially keeping track of all of the relationships in the background. So if at some point in the future, I decided to delete out that Bloxham Library image, I don't like it anymore, I'm going to replace it with something else. When I'm about to delete it, Dependency Manager will step up and say, hey, this image is actually on these 4 different pages. Before you delete it, you may want to make a change or replace them first. So it keeps track of all those relationships in the background, so you don't accidentally delete or rename a file and then have a broken image or a broken link on your pages. So I see this dependency tag filling in this field here, but you'll notice directly underneath it, I do still have the file path. So I can confirm, yes, that's the library. That is the image that I wanted. In the bottom right-hand corner, if I go ahead and click OK, you're going to notice I'm going to get an error that tells me a description is required. So this is for accessibility purposes. So as part of accessibility, if someone with a visual impairment is looking at your website and they're using a screen reader, the screen reader will actually read the alt text of an image to describe what is being shown there. The description in this field is going to populate out that alt text in the code so the screen reader can find it. So I want to put in a description of what this is. So I'll go ahead and just call it Bloxham Library. And that will populate out and fulfill that. My next field down is Tooltip. Tooltip is not required, but I like to use it. Tooltip will essentially pop up some text if I hover over the image. So I like to use the same text that I used for the description. So essentially what I'll do is I'm going to click and hold and highlight the entire chunk of text. I'm going to hit Control-C or Command-C if you're a Mac person to copy, and then Control-V or Command-V to paste it into that same field. Dimensions have to do with how or the size of the image when it is placed on the page. So if your organization has a very specific guidelines of images need to be this size if they're placed here, you can go ahead and make that adjustment here. These are in pixels. If you're not quite sure what it should be, you can make edits to the size of it later on. So I'm going to leave it as it sits right now, and then we can tweak it a little bit later. Class and ID are going to be 2 fields that will be used specifically per implementation. So your implementation may not use either of these fields, or they may use them a lot. It all depends. You should contact your school administration if you're trying to figure out if those should apply to you. They do not apply in my sandbox, so I'm just going to skip them. So all this information I have here is helping me decide which image, but I haven't dictated how I want it to appear on the page yet. My second tab up here is called Appearance. Clicking on that, I have some control over how it will look once it's placed on the page. And I have a little preview up here in the upper right-hand corner. So you'll notice right now my image is going to appear, but I'm only going to get one line of text next to it. I end up with this big kind of blank space above it. I'm going to adjust that one. Where it says alignment, I'm going to set it so it's aligned to the left. And this will allow all that text to fill in on the right-hand side. So I like that. That's what I want. But you'll notice it's a little squished. So my image and then the text right next to it, those are pretty close together. I'm going to want to put a little bit of spacing there. So in the field that says horizontal space, I'm going to type the number 10. And then I'm going to click anywhere else inside this box to update the preview. And you'll notice I now have some nice spacing on either side. Actually, it's 10 pixels of nice spacing. For you techie people out there, you'll notice I have this field down at the bottom that is my style. This is the inline stylizing that is being applied to that image. So I can also make edits directly here. So you'll notice I have some nice spacing on the right. I think that looks good. But on the left, I don't think I really need that spacing. I kind of liked it lined up with the left. So down in this style section where it says margin left, I'm going to highlight that entire chunk and just take it out. Again, click anywhere else in the box to see the preview. Now my image is lined up to the left and I have some nice spacing on the right. I think that looks good. Bottom right-hand corner, I'll go ahead and hit OK. Whoa, my picture's a little big. All right, let's make some adjustments to that size there. A couple of different ways I can do it. When I click on the image, I can once again click on that icon. It'll bring up the exact same dialog box so I can make changes to the size right here. But me personally, I prefer to change it a slightly different way. You'll notice when I have it clicked, I get these little bumpers in the corner. I can click and shrinky-dink them down and just resize it right there. So I can get it to the exact size that I want by being able to see it and make the adjustments. So that gets me all set up with my images. Other things that I can do here as well, maybe I want to put a header across the top. So all the way up here at the top, I'm going to hit enter. Maybe right here, I want to put in something, maybe like, go Gophers. But I want to make this my heading, not just regular text. I'm going to click and hold and highlight this text here. And again, up in my toolbar, I have a drop-down that currently says paragraph. When I choose it, it gives me all of my heading options. So maybe I'll make this one a heading 2. Clicking on that, it makes that text a little bit bigger and beefier. Again, depending upon your implementation, your exact look is going to depend upon which font your school is using. Now that I have that there, my image is a little bit too small. I'll make it just a little bit bigger to fill up that space. Perfect. All right. Other things, simple and easy inside OU Campus, I can go ahead and make adjustments. So maybe I don't want this to say today. I want it to say next week. I can easily add an additional information. Here's an additional sentence. So really the way that you're interacting with this is very similar to the way you interact with any kind of word processor. Maybe I want to just take out this entire paragraph here. I'll click and hold and highlight, just delete it out. Nice and simple. All right, so I've made a bunch of different changes to this particular page. Let's also highlight the fact that we have 17 sports. Maybe I want that to be a little bit bolder. Up here at the top, I do have my typical font format changing, my bold, my italic, my underline. I can also use my keyboard shortcuts. So for those of you out there who love your keyboard shortcuts, those work too. So Control B for bold, Control U for underline, Control I for italicize, or Command. So all of my changes made nice, simple, easy. Now, all of these adjustments were made in this editor. This editor is called a WYSIWYG type. And the word WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get. So the adjustments that I've made here, this rendition is what it will look like when I get to my live site. So let's take a look how that would preview. In the upper left-hand corner of my toolbar, I have the little floppy disk for save and exit. I'll go ahead and click on that. I'll see all of my changes rendering here. Here's all of my information. And it is appearing the way I had it inside the system. So all of these changes that we've made so far only live inside OU Campus. My live page has not changed yet. That's another one of those unique features of OU Campus. OU Campus is considered a decoupled system, meaning this editing platform and your live site are separated. I can make changes here, test them out, take a look at it, decide how I want it to appear, and then only when I am happy with exactly how it looks will I publish it out. There are going to be times when you're going to have changes having been made inside OU Campus, and you're going to wonder, well, how does this compare to what's currently live on my site? For that, I'd want to compare my different versions. So back here up at the top, inside my Page Actions toolbar, I have a button called Versions. Clicking on that, I'm going to see the list of all of the different versions of this page. And depending upon how long your implementation has been running, you may have a lot of these. I'll be able to see the version number. I'll be able to see the date of that version, whether the date it was either saved or published. I'll be able to see who made that save or publish. Usually I'll get a description. You're going to notice here I don't have any description. I'll show you how to create a description, and I do highly recommend you use them. And then over here on the right, I have some additional options. And you'll notice out of these two lines, my top one is currently highlighted green. This is the version that is currently live on my live site. So if I want to make a comparison between what's currently living inside OU Campus and what's live on the site, I'm going to compare it to this green version here. Hovering over the row, I get some additional options. So under Compare, I'm going to click Page. And it's going to render a comparison. So as I scroll down here, taking a look at this content, I'll be able to see that anything that is in green, so the image, my Go Gophers at the top, the words next week, all of those are things that have been added into OU Campus. Anything that is red with the strike through, those are things that have been removed from OU Campus. And anything that's in the blue, those are things that still exist in both versions, but inside OU Campus, the formatting has changed somehow. So in this case, the formatting has been bolded, italicized, and underlined. So it gives me a good kind of overview of what differences I see inside the system. Heading back to Edit, let's go ahead and jump back inside that editable region and make some more changes. So I'll go ahead and open up my main content. In addition to inserting images, I imagine that you will also probably be inserting links. So let's talk about how to do that. I'm going to place my cursor at the very end, just hit Enter to continue pushing this space down. And maybe we'll say, I'll put a link here. I'm going to create some text. This is going to be the link. Click and hold and highlight. And then there are a couple of different ways that I can insert a link. From the toolbar, I have a button that looks like chain links that allows me to insert/edit link, and it'll bring up this lovely dialog box. I can also right-click on the highlighted words and click Insert Edit Link. Either way, I'll get to the same dialog box. This process that I'm following now is going to be the same process you'll use if you're going to link to another page that lives on your website. It'll be the same process if you're linking to a page that's external to your website. And it'll be the same process if you're linking to a document, so a PowerPoint, PDF, anything like that. So let's say for this example, I want to link to a page that exists on my site. So it is managed inside OU Campus. In that case, I would just browse for it. So again, next to the URL field, I'll click on that Browse button. And then maybe I want to take a step back in my folder structure and go dig somewhere else. So right now, I'm looking at all of the individual pages that are inside athletics. To take a step back in my folder structure, I'm going to come up to this set of breadcrumbs and just go one back. You'll notice the word Galena in my site is a clickable link. Clicking on that, I can see there's my athletics folder, but I'm now one step back. I can see everything else too. So maybe I want to link this page to something in academics. So I'll click the academics folder. Maybe I want to link it to the library page. Clicking on the library page, I get a little preview on the right-hand side with some additional information. Bottom right-hand corner, I'll click Insert. Again, just like the image, you're going to notice my dependency tag is what's going to be filling in that field. But directly underneath it, I can still confirm that file path to make sure I'm grabbing the right page. So that's perfect. Directly underneath that, I have the text to display. So these are the actual words that are going to be displayed as the link. So maybe I don't want it to actually say, I'll put a link here. Maybe instead I want it to say, click here. My title for a link is very similar to a tooltip for an image. So if I hover over the link, it's going to give me a little bit of text. I like to use the title to kind of explain to the person who's looking at my page where this link will take them. So maybe for my title, I'll call it the library page. Target has to do with how this particular link will open. So I have two options here. If I use a target of none, it means that this link will open in the exact same window, the exact same tab that I'm currently in. If I use a target of new window, it'll open this link in either a new tab or a new window, depending upon which browser the person is looking in. So because this is a page that exists inside my website, I'm okay with it having a target of none, because really I'm just directing them to the right place inside the website. If this was a link that took me off of my school website, then I would probably want to use a new window option so that my school website was still open in that previous tab. So for this one, I'll leave my target set to none. And then again, I do have the option of a class field at the bottom. Again, this is going to be very associated with your particular implementation. So you may or may not have classes that apply to links. In my sandbox, I do not, so I'll leave it just as it is. Bottom right-hand corner, I'll go ahead and click OK. And you'll notice here's my text. It has some additional stylizing here inside my editor. And you'll notice if I click on it, it doesn't actually take me anywhere right now. It's because I'm still in this editable region. If I put my cursor inside this set of text, it allows me to open up that insert edit link again and make changes. So I won't be able to click it here, but that additional stylizing will let me know that it is a link. Same generalized idea if I'm linking to a page that is outside of my website. So click here for information about financial aid. Maybe I want the word here to be my link for this one. So click and hold and highlight on that piece of text, and then I can either click on that button that's in my toolbar or right click and click Insert Edit Link, either way. So maybe for this one, I want to send them to the FAFSA.gov website. Under my text to display, I'm going to use the word here. That works. I'll call this the FAFSA website for my title. And then for this one, because I'm sending them off of my school website, I am going to change the target here and make it new window. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and you're going to notice when I do that, I'm going to get a message that pops up. This is telling me that the URL I entered looks like a web URL. That is quite true. It asks me, do I want to prefix it with http://. This is because anytime I'm using a link off of my website, it does need to be a fully qualified URL. So it needs the HTTP or the HTTPS at the beginning. OU Campus, relatively intelligent, figured out that this is one of those external links, so it will add on that HTTP for me at the beginning. I'm going to say, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you doing my job. It works out pretty well. So now I have two links, one that is going to direct inside my website and one that takes me off the website. Perfect. All right. Continuing down the line, other things that you may have use of when you are setting up your web page, you may want to have a mail to link. So setting up this kind of link is a little bit different. This is one of those like, for more information about training, please contact Barbara. And I want my name to be one of those links where you click on it and it'll populate information into my email service. So click and hold and highlight on my name itself. This time, I'm going to use the Mail To link. It looks like a little envelope that's up in my toolbar. Clicking on that envelope is going to ask me for an address. I'll go ahead and put in, I'll put in my email. And then I can put in a default subject message for the email. Again, you may or may not have a class that gets applied to Mail To links. My sandbox does not, so I'll just leave it set to not set. Hit OK. And now I have a Mail To link set up there. Perfect. So this is kind of your general process as you're making basic edits. You're going to notice you have a lot of different options here inside your toolbar for making things. So you could create lists. So maybe I want a bulleted list. Item 1, item 2, item 3. I can also maybe change those to a numbered list instead. A lot of different things that you would basically do in any kind of word processor. When I'm done with the list, I'll hit enter a second time, and then I've closed that list. So these are your basic edits. There are some additional resources that are available and unique to OU Campus. We call these reusable content, and they're essentially two different types. The first type of reusable content is called an asset. So imagine, if you will, you have a tuition number for fall of 2018. And that number is going to be placed all over your site. So it'll be on the financial aid page, the scholarships page, the admissions page, it's everywhere. Come fall of 2019, if your tuition number changes, you kind of got to remember all of the places you put that number, because it's really important that it's right across the entire site. That is an excellent example of when you would want to use an asset. Assets allow you to manage a piece of content in one central location, but you can place that asset on a whole bunch of different pages. And then when it's time to update that piece of information, again, you only update it in that one location, and that change sprinkles out to every single page. Placing an asset on a page, I'm going to go ahead and place my cursor where I would like it to be. And my icon for an asset are these set of arrows moving in a square. Clicking on that, I'm going to get the listing of all of the different asset types that I have. Depending upon your implementation, you may have a lot of these. So you'll notice there are a bunch of different types. So clicking under all types, if you know which type of asset you're looking for, you can hone in on it here. Your web content, plain text, and source code, all of those are going to be your base assets that are included inside OU Campus. For those of you out there who also have your live delivery platform, you'll also see image galleries and forms. So maybe for our purposes today, we'll go ahead and choose a source code for this. If I have a particular name of that asset and I know what it's going to be, I can type it in here. And I also have the ability to filter by tags. Tags are a way to internally tag content that makes it easier to search for later. So as I'm going through, as I'm creating pages, assets, and things like that, I can tag the pieces of content to make it easy to search for later. For us, let's go ahead and see if we can grab this Twitter feed. So here's my asset for my Omni Update Twitter feed. Clicking on it, over on the right-hand side, I'm going to see the chunk of code. Don't worry, you don't have to play with the code at all. It's already pre-created. All I'm going to do is place it on the page. Bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to click Insert. And you're going to notice that does not look like a Twitter feed at all. As I mentioned earlier, assets are centrally managed, and I place them on different pages, but I cannot change them on the individual pages. I can't make edits on a page-by-page basis. They're controlled centrally. So really what I'm seeing here is an acknowledgement that, yes, you've placed an asset on this page. No, you cannot edit it from here. To be able to see the preview in the upper left-hand corner, I'm just going to hit Save and Exit, and then it will render. So here's my asset at work pulling in our Twitter feed. Depending upon the source code assets that you may have inside your implementation, your assets may require server-side scripting in order to render. So you may get another acknowledgement here that says something like, the news feed will appear on production or something like that. There was a question asking whether or not you'll get a link to the recording of the session. I will go ahead and send out an email at the end to provide you with a link. And then you can always find links to our recordings on our support site. All right, back inside this editable region, I'm going to click on that main content button again. So after this, I want to add the second type of reusable content. My second type is called a snippet. Snippets, a little bit different than assets in that an asset is controlled centrally. I cannot make edits on a page-by-page basis. For a snippet, I can. So here's your use case. Imagine, if you will, the Alumni Association is running some sort of campaign. And at the bottom of every single page, they want a quote from one of the alumni of that department. They don't want the same quote across the entire site. That would be boring. But they do want it stylized exactly the same way on every single page. So they want the big swooshy quotes with like a faded background and the text is a little bit bigger and slightly italicized and lots of very specific things they want. In that case, you'd use a snippet. A snippet allows you to insert all the stylizing, but you can control what content is included inside of it. So let's go ahead and create a snippet. My icon for a snippet is this little puzzle piece here. So clicking on that, again, I'm going to get my list view of all of my different snippets. You're going to notice my filtering options at the top here are a little bit different. And I want to highlight for you this categories section. Depending upon your implementation, you may have more categories than I have here. But ultimately, the categories will let you know which snippets are designed to work in which sections of your site. So my sandbox has Email Campaign Manager. So I have a whole bunch of snippets that are only designed to work on Email Campaign Manager pages. These will not render correctly on a regular page, so I should not use them here. I've seen some schools who have homepage only snippets. So they're going to be either categorized or the naming convention will have some information in it to let you know this is the homepage only or this particular page type or faculty pages or what have you. So keep an eye on that when you're choosing your snippet. Your generic ones will usually work across your entire site. So clicking on generic, I do have a listing of options here. I'm going to go ahead and choose my accordion, because it'll give us an example of a table transformation snippet. So in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to go ahead and click Insert. And you're going to notice I essentially get a table. It's not a very attractive table either. It's just a table, you know. When I save and exit out of the editable region, you're going to see this snippet render underneath all of my Twitter. Oh my goodness. Here's my snippet. Here's my accordion. When I click on each one of these bars, they open and close to show me the content. So this rendering would be really difficult in order to edit, just because if I click on, say, heading 2, am I clicking on it to open it or am I clicking on it to edit it? It gets a little bit tricky. And oftentimes, the snippets that you have are going to have some unique stylizing. Sometimes they have some animations going on. So it's easier to make edits inside the editable region using a table. Back up to the top. I'm going to open up that main content region again. And now you'll see each one of these table cells holds the content for each of those individual sections of the snippet. So let's say instead of heading number 1, I want to change this so it says Barbara's heading. And instead of content number 1 here, I'm going to change this to say, woo, that's not where I want it to be. This is the content that Barbara created. Upper right-hand corner, save and exit. Upper left-hand corner, save and exit. And now you'll notice my snippet is rendered. I have my information in that bar, and in the content inside of it. So editing your snippets, simple and easy using those table transformations. One more thing I want to note to you guys as we're taking a look, as we've been talking about saving and exiting, it closes out this editable region, which means I'm scrolling all the way down to the bottom to look at my accordion, and then scrolling all the way back up to the top in order to open the editable region again. But you'll notice that's really the only button I have here in order to save. This is where those keyboard shortcuts come in. So if I'm editing a page and it's a pretty long page and I want to save it on a regular basis, while I'm inside this editable region, I can hit Control and hit S. And you'll see down at the bottom, I get the status bar that tells me that my page has been saved. So I don't need to exit out of the page in order to save it regularly. I do recommend saving your work regularly. I know it's kind of like being in school again. If it should happen that you suddenly have a connectivity issue and you suddenly lose OU Campus, you lose your internet, what have you, you did not necessarily lose the edits that you're making inside the system. Back up here, I have a little life preserver icon that says Restore Last Draft. So if I suddenly lose my internet and OU Campus closes, or I accidentally close the window and I was making edits that I hadn't saved yet, I can come back into this page, open up the editable region and click Restore Last Draft, and it'll bring it back. So you'll need to do that relatively quickly. That Restore Last Draft will only save for about 20 minutes, but it is the lifesaver to make sure that all the work that you've been working on didn't get lost. All right. So saving and exiting out. We've made all of these lovely adjustments to my main content editable region. You'll notice on my particular profile here, I also have a little side content region button, which I can open up. It gives me a little bit of additional space to be able to put in information. And again, depending upon your implementation, you may have more or less editable region buttons than you're seeing on mine. But you will notice there are certain things that I cannot edit from here. For example, the title of this page. That's not an editable region right here. That's controlled in a slightly different place. So let me show you where that is controlled. As long as the page is still checked out to me, I'm going to click where it says Properties. And I have this option called Parameters. Please be aware, this Parameters option does not appear if the page is not checked out to me. So if I check the page back in, you'll notice I don't even have that option on my sidebar. It's okay, you did not break the system. Like I thought I broke the system the first time I did it. The page just has to be checked out to you for parameters to appear. So in this section, I do have my title and metadata information. So that's for my SEO purposes. So this is my meta title, my meta description. That is awful for SEO purposes, not to have a description in there. My apologies. And this is where I can tag the page. It makes it quicker and easier to search for it later. So I'm going to go ahead and tag this page as training. So when I'm looking through pages later, I can easily search for anything that has that training tag and it'll pull it all together. And then you're going to notice down here, I have my custom settings. Again, depending upon your implementation, the options that you have in this section may be different. For mine, I have control over my page heading right here. So I could go ahead and change this to say, Barbara's Galena Gophers. Bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to click Save. And you'll notice my Barbara's Galena Gophers has updated right here. I like having the page parameters, but personally, I find it a little bit difficult to envision what it's going to look like because it is on a separate screen. From this edit mode, I can still edit the parameters, but I'm going to use a gadget for it. Gadgets can be accessed by clicking on that little plug in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Gadgets are essentially little self-contained apps. They take information that's provided somewhere inside the system and bring it to your fingertips. It just makes your editing experience a little bit easier. We currently have 20 different gadgets, and they are contextual. So depending upon which page I'm looking at, the number of gadgets I see in this list may be different. For you, if you're new to OU Campus, you may still have some gadgets that are hidden. So let's go ahead and turn on all of your gadgets or unhide them so you'll be able to see the different options. At the top where it says gadgets, I have the little gear. Clicking on the gear, I have all of my different gadgets listed here. In this top gray bar, there is a checkbox inside the bar itself. I'm going to uncheck everything and check it a second time to select all. So this will take all of the gadgets and add them in. Bottom right-hand corner, save. So the number of gadgets that I'm seeing here applies to this page. If I open up an editable region, watch what happens to the number of gadgets I have available. I suddenly get more. It's because there are gadgets that now apply, whereas they didn't apply before. So you'll notice here I have an assets gadget, a snippets gadget, and images gadget. So all of those things that we added into the page using either a right click or one of my toolbars, I can add right here from my gadgets bar. So maybe I want to add in an additional image here. When I click on an image here, I'll be able to see a slightly larger preview. I can click on insert and it'll place it where my cursor is. Or I can click and drag and drop the image. Again, I'll need to put in my description. And bottom right-hand corner, okay. And it'll place the image in. So just a slightly quicker way in order to add it into the system. It all depends upon your preferences, how you want it to be set up. But the same functionality works for my assets and my snippets. I can grab, drag, and drop. So let's get back to that page parameters thing that we were talking about though. So we went ahead and we changed this page heading. I can make additional changes to the page using my page parameters gadget. So here's my page parameters gadget. Your gadgets are customizable to you. So you can shift them, move them, do as you see fit. I like to take the gadget I'm currently using, click and hold that bar, and just drag it up to the top, and open it by clicking on the little chevron. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to see. Opening this gadget, you're going to see title and metadata. Why, how convenient. There's our tag we put on before for training, and here's my page heading here. So maybe I want to go ahead and change this again. Instead of it saying Barbara's Galena Gophers, I'm going to say Go Galena Gophers! Exclamation point. Bottom right-hand corner of the gadget, I'll hit save, and my page will render right here. So I like being able to see it right next to each other to be able to make those adjustments. Back to my gadget, you're going to notice for mine, I have the ability to turn certain regions on and off. So I have an image slider region here at the top. If I switch this to on and hit save, let's do a quick refresh on that one. There we go. I now have an image slider region. So I can turn on and off individual regions. For my implementation, I can also turn on and off different columns. So right now, my left column option, it is turned on. I can also turn on a right column option. Save. So now I have a right column too. So depending upon your implementation, you may have the ability to change your page layout using your page parameters. Awesome. All right, so I've gone ahead and made all of those changes for what I can adjust here on the page. Now is the point in time where everything looks perfect. I love it. Let's go ahead and get it published. Up at the top, I do have this big green button. Mine says publish. Now, depending upon the organization of your school, yours may not say publish, it may say submit instead. If it does, it means that this page or your users are involved in a workflow. It means that when you click on that submit button, you'll submit the page to someone else, they'll review it, and then either approve it or decline it. If you are able to see the publish button, right from here, I can click publish, and I'll get a whole bunch of different options. So I have these big buttons on my publish screen here. These buttons are going to check the page before it goes out to the live site. Again, just another safety precaution, making sure that all of the information that's about to hit my live site is pristine. So happily here, it looks like I have no spelling errors. My link check is showing me one warning. So let's click on the show results link. What I'm really focused on here is my production line. That column is what can be accessed from my live site, and that's really what I care about. So looking for this warning here, it looks like my FAFSA.gov site is throwing that production warning. That is more than likely because FAFSA.gov has probably switched over to HTTPS. So they've left in a redirect, so it's still being found, but it's being found at the HTTPS. So that's fine. The link will continue to work. So I'm not even gonna worry about that one. My last two checks here, my W3C validation is checking the code on the page to make sure it adheres to HTML5 schema. And then the accessibility check is again checking the code, looking to make sure that the accessibility guidelines administrators have set are being met. So you'll notice here, I do have what looks like a whole bunch of problems. So let's take a look really quick. It tells me I have one known problem, and it has to do with my header nesting. So it doesn't like the fact that we made that first header a header 2. So that would be something where I would just go into the page and make an adjustment to the header. This 96 potential problems, those aren't necessarily issues. The system is scanning the code of the page itself. So there are going to be some things where the system can't be sure exactly what's happening. For example, we took our image and we placed it right here, and we filled in the right-hand side with the text, which got a little squished because we added on an additional column. So from here, it kind of looks like the person could look at this page and then start, or look at this image and then start reading. Maybe I have a really stylized page and like the first word or the first letter appears in this image. Well, in that case, that may be an accessibility issue just because the person who's trying to read the page can't read an image, they can only read the description. That's something that OU Campus can't tell. It can't see the image. It cannot tell if that image has content in it or text in it that needs to be read. So that's where a potential problem comes up. It's the type of thing where a human needs to just look at it to say, nope, yeah, that's fine, it's just a building, it's perfect. And then you can just go ahead and keep moving on. So after I've run all of my checks and everything looks good, at this point, I'm gonna add in a version description. I highly recommend using version descriptions. At some point in the future for your system, when you have updated this page 100 times, you're not gonna remember what the difference between version number 72 and 73 were, but a version description will help. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in made updates. We'll make our tenses match for June monthly orientation. In the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to go ahead and click Publish. I'll see a status bar across the bottom, and once the publish has been completed, I end up with this link that says View in New Window. Clicking on that link, it will open up my live page. So again, just one more chance to do a quick check over, make sure everything looks the way I expected. There's my crazy Twitter feeds, and then all the way down at the bottom, here's my accordion. All right, it's looking good. I'm gonna click back to my previous tab, and you're gonna notice that this page has checked itself back in. Once a page has been published, it'll check itself back in because the assumption is you've published the page, you're probably done with it. Now it is available to anyone else inside the system. All right. Checking the page back out to me, I wanted to point out to you this little arrow next to the publish button because I have some additional options here. In addition to just publishing it, I can schedule a publish. So let's say, for example, I've made all the changes that I need, everything's looking good, I need to publish it out Monday morning at 8 a.m. Well, there's a problem there because I'm going on vacation. I'm not going to be publishing this out Monday morning at 8 a.m. I'm sorry, I'm going to be on a beach. So in that case, I could schedule it to publish. I have all my changes already set up. I'm going to choose my date on Monday. We'll do this at 8 a.m. I can even send a message to myself. Just that way I get the confirmation that the page published. So I have a subject message, I have a message, and then as long as my user profile has an email address, I can leave this button checked and it'll email my external email address. So I don't have to live inside OU campus. When important things are happening, the system can email me to draw my attention to it. Bottom right-hand corner, I'll click Schedule. So now it's scheduled to publish. It'll publish on Monday at 8 a.m. I'm gonna look amazing. My boss will think I'm really cool, but I'm gonna be hanging out on a beach. It'll be great. To remove the scheduled publish, just click on that big red button. Other things I can do, I can expire the page. So let's say I have my page all scheduled. It's already been published out. It's live on the site, but I want to take it down at a certain point. So the Alumni Association has a dinner going on. They want to take down that page the night or the morning after the dinner has finished. So they can schedule it to either be replaced by another piece of content, or if your user has the ability to recycle, they can schedule it to be recycled. It'll completely take it down. Same generalized idea here. Select your dates, put in your message, and you can send a message to yourself. The last option we have here is submit for approval. So I'd mentioned if your button just says submit, you are in an enforced approval. It has to go to that other person in order to be approved. But let's be honest, sometimes you're going to be working on a page and you may want someone else's thoughts on a page. You can then submit it to someone else for approval. So clicking on submit for approval, I can choose who I want to send it to. So maybe I want to send it to Brandon. I'll put in a message and a subject. And then in this bottom corner here, I can again leave that checked to send a copy to their email. Bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to go ahead and hit submit, and this will actually take this page and hand it to Brandon. So you'll notice my options up here across the top are now very limited, and instead of seeing a light bulb, I see a lock symbol. This is what it looks like when a page is locked to someone else. So Brandon has this page checked out to him now, it's locked to me, and I cannot make any changes to it. So that is kind of your generalized editing process. In addition to making these changes that we talked about here, you are going to notice there are some more universal resources that are appearing here. So I have my sidebar content, my side navigation. I have a big header across the top, and I have a big footer all the way down at the bottom. These pieces of information are more global resources. They're not editable on this page because they're used across multiple pages. In that case, if I wanted to make edits to any of those, I would have to make edits to that global resource. So let's talk about where you'd find those. I want to go back out to my pages list view, and there are a couple of different ways I can do that. Hovering over content, I can click where it says pages, or in the breadcrumb, the word pages is a link as well. So I click where it says pages, it'll bring me out to the same level I was just in. There's my Go First page. You'll notice from here, my little status, it looks like a little person. Hovering over it, it tells me it's pending approval by Brandon. You'll notice also at this level, I have an underscore sidenav.inc. Depending upon your implementation, your file may be differently named. It may be set up slightly differently. You may not even have a file at all. It all depends upon your school's implementation and their design. For me, I have this additional side navigation file. If I click on it to open it, you'll see here is my side navigation. If I wanted to make edits to this, I'd really rather make these edits inside my source code because it's an INC file. It's just a flat include file. For some of you, it may be a PCF, and it'll be very similar to like our Go First page, where you'll have a big green editable region button. But if I want to make changes here, I'm going to click where it says source code. We're going to make this a little bit easier to see from where you are. Make it a little bigger. So each one of these guys is here. We're breaking stuff. Each one of these guys here, let's try this again. Each one of these guys here is a link. So from here, maybe I want to link to another page. I would essentially take the same LI, this list item, and I add another one here. And then I can put in the specific name that I want it to say. And instead of this dependency tag, I'm going to put in a different one. And I can do that using this insert file path. So I can, again, go choose the file that I want, just like when we were linking before. So maybe we'll link to that library page again, as soon as I remember where it was. Haha, there. Insert, and it'll include there. So when I save, now I have Barbara's link down here too. So the big thing that you're going to want to remember about include files is if you're making changes to them, you do need to publish it out in order for it to appear on the live site. So right now, my live page that we published just a little bit ago, my side navigation ends at tickets. If I publish out this side navigation, now if I come back to my live page and refresh, there's Barbara's link. So quick overview on kind of how to add things into your side navigation. Don't worry, the vast majority of the implementations that we create here will automatically add in side navigation items when you create new content. So don't overstress that. Back to my pages list view, let's talk about where to find those headers and footers. Because those are global, because they're used across your entire site, they're going to be controlled in a slightly different location. So at the very top of my pages list view, I have my little house again. And from here, I'm going to click on that house and it's going to bring me back to the root of my site. From here, I'm going to click inside resources and inside my includes. And here I have my header and my footer files. So clicking on header, you're going to notice mine is split up into different pieces. Again, yours might be a little bit different. So here's my contact information. Here's our call us with the email address. If I go back to the live site, here's the call us with the email address. If I look at, say, the logo, there's my logo appearing up here at the top. So mine is just split into different pieces. My top navigation, calendar, directory, A to Z, there they are. So each one of these pieces is pulled together on the live page in order to create this header. Same idea for the footer here. All of my pieces are in here. And actually mine also uses a mega nav. My mega nav is this big honking thing over here. So that is controlled again by a separate file. So should you ever see things in here that need changing or updating, if you do not have access to that _ resources folder, just contact your school administration and let them know. Marvelous. Good, good, good. All right, back to the root of my site. Let's go back into that athletics folder. So all the editing that we've done so far, fine, good, and terrific, assuming the page already exists. There may come times when you need to create something new. So let's talk about how to do that. From this level, I'm going to want to put in another page. So up at the top, I have this plus new button. Clicking on that, I'll get the different template options. Depending upon your school, you may have specific template options available only in specific places in your site. So for us, let's go ahead and create, say, a 2-column content right. Clicking on it is essentially going to give me a new page wizard. So it's going to prompt me for information. I'll fill it in here, and then it'll use that to build the page. Depending upon your implementation, the information it asks may be different, so keep that in mind. I'm going to call this Barbara's page. A quick note here, underneath each of these fields, you have this little helper text. I will admit I am the last person to ever actually read the helper text. I will tell you though, the helper text is very helpful. Helper text has been created specifically for your implementation. So if there are fields that are required, if there are fields that are optional, if there are fields that need something very specific, like the image has to be a very specific size or what have you, that information will be included in the helper text. So I do highly recommend, especially as you're kind of getting comfortable with the different template options, that you read through that helper text to figure out exactly what it is asking for. So this one is telling me it's going to be the page title that's displayed by my search engines. So I'm okay with capital letters, the apostrophe, the space. I'm going to want that there. Here's my description, again, to be displayed by search engines. So this is for my SEO purposes. My file name field, check that helper text. It tells me only lowercase letters, underscores, or dashes. So I can't use the exact same phrasing that I use for my page title. Instead, in here, I'm going to do all lowercase. I won't put in any apostrophes. I won't put in the space, and I'll just call it Barbara's page. And then down here at the bottom where it says add navigation item, that's what I was talking about before. My system is set up to automatically add in those links on the side navigation when a page is created. So I'm going to say, yes, thank you very much. Please do that. Depending upon how your site is set up, those side links may be required in order for your navigation to work appropriately. So I would recommend, by default, leaving it set to yes. Bottom right-hand corner, create. All right, so here's my page. You're going to notice as soon as it's created, I'm automatically dropped off on it. It is automatically checked out to me. The system basically says, well, you made it. You're probably going to be editing it. So here you go. And you'll see down here at the bottom, Barbara's page is already included in my links. Click on my main content editable region. There's my toolbar. This is where I just jump in and start editing. Back out to my pages list view. If I wanted to publish out this page, in order for it to appear in that side navigation, I'd need to publish out my side navigation as well. So both of those files would need to be published at the same time. Because I'm a level 8, I have the ability to check both of those files and just publish them from here. So I'll go ahead and do that. And I also have the ability to include my checked out files. So by default, if I choose a whole bunch of files like this, it will not publish out the checked out ones. It's not sure if you're done making changes or adjustments. We're just going to be careful about that. But because it's me, because I know I just made the page, I'll include it as a checked out file. Publish. My 2 files were successfully published, and now they're available out on the web. So if I come back to my live page and I just do a quick refresh, there's my Barbara's page. I'm clicking on the link. It'll bring me to my nice blank page. So that's how we go ahead and create a new page. Other things that I can create have to do with essentially organization. So maybe I want to put in an additional section in here. So from plus new, you're going to notice I have a new section with index page, and I also have an option for create new folder. There's a big difference between these two. And when you are setting up either your section or your folder, you want to be very careful about which one you choose based upon what's going inside of it. When I create a new section, again, it'll ask me for information. But it's creating more than just the page. So here's the page that I named Hi. If I come back to my pages list view, you're going to notice in addition to my page, it also created a side navigation file. Sections are designed for web pages. Depending upon your implementation, you may have a side navigation, you may have a props file, you may have all of these additional helper files that are necessary in order for your page to render correctly. So if you're trying to create a section of your site and you're planning on putting web pages into it, you need to use that plus new section. If instead you're going to be using a folder, that is only for binary files. So it's purely for organizational purposes. I need somewhere to just put all my pictures. All my images just need to go over here so they're not like overwhelming me in my site. So in that case, I'd hit plus new and I could use my create new folder. I'll go ahead and call this images, bottom right hand corner, create. When I open up my images folder, you'll notice there's nothing in here. There are none of those helper files. So this is purely for organizational purposes. I need a place to dump all my images. That's it. So conveniently, while we're here, let's talk about uploading images into the system. So from here in the upper right-hand corner, I do have this little button that says upload. Clicking on that, I get this big green plus add button. So from here, I can add images. So maybe I'm going to choose this cute little bridge. Bottom right-hand corner, I'll hit open. And then I get a queue of all the images that I'm about to add in. Depending upon your implementation, your administrators may have set up naming conventions. So they may require certain characters, or they may disallow certain characters from the file name. If this particular image conflicted with the file naming conventions, I'd see an error down here in the bottom corner, and I'd also get a little description that'll tell me which characters are allowed and which are not. So hovering over this row, I can rename it right here. So let's say this images did not meet the naming convention. I'm going to click rename. I need to hold on to the extension at the end. So don't lose that .jpg. And maybe I'll change this to bridge, so it's a little bit more descriptive. Click anywhere inside the box in order to lock in that name, and we're all set. There are additional ways that you can upload images. So maybe I don't want to go searching through the folder structure. I already know exactly which file I want. From here, with this upload dialog box, I can click and hold and drag my image in. And you're going to notice as soon as I get into that droppable region, I get this green highlight around the box. So I can just click and drag and drop it in, and it'll be placed here. Bottom right-hand corner, start upload. So these two images are now uploaded into OU Campus. There's an additional way. I don't even have to click the upload button. From here, I can click and hold, and notice how when I get to that droppable region, the entire page highlights green. I can drop it right like that. So nice, easy ways for me to be able to add my images into the system. Now, let's take a look at that mountains image. Ooh, this is pretty big. This is probably a little bit larger than I would want it to be placed on a page unless I was using it for, say, a banner. So I can do some basic photo editing right here inside OU Campus. Over on the left-hand side, I have the ability to resize. So opening it up by clicking on that chevron, I'm going to leave preserve ratio checked, so it'll keep the aspect ratio. But I'm going to make this, instead of 960, I'm going to shrink it down to 500. And then click resize to apply it. So I'll see the image gets a little smaller in the bottom corner. It'll also give me the estimated file size now that the image is that size. I can crop. So none of that. And then I do have the ability to rotate the image as well. So all of this can easily be done inside OU Campus. Bottom right-hand corner, I could click cancel. That would essentially get rid of all the changes that I just made. I could click save as, so that'll take this image and then allow me to save it as a separate file. So my original file will still exist. It'll still be inside the system. This is just a smaller version of it. And then finally, I can hit save. That'll overwrite over the file I was just looking at. An important note when we're talking about resizing really quickly, resizing an image smaller is fine. I would never recommend resizing an image larger. You come into a situation where the image can get stretched out looking and kind of pixelated, and it's not really something that you're going to want. So let's go ahead and click save as. So we'll save this as an additional file. I'm going to call this mountains 2 and hit save in the bottom corner. Perfect. So now this image is saved. Back to my pages list view. So I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these images here. They currently live inside OU Campus. In order for them to work on the live website, they need to live on my live production server too. I have a tab here called production. If I click on that, it'll show me what lives on the production server. And as you can see, nothing's there right now. So I need to publish those images in order for them to be out there. So back out here, I'm going to click all these images. I'm going to publish them all and include my checked out files and hit publish. Perfect. So now if I click that production tab again, there they are. They're all available for me now on my live site. Back to staging. This is wonderful. This is fine and great and good and works terrifically if you're one of those people who like plans ahead and has forethought. If you're more like me, here's probably what happens. You're on a page. You're making edits. You're about to insert your image. You're looking for it. And this is the moment that you realize, the picture I need isn't here. In that case, it's okay. You do have an upload button right here. So I can upload directly from that insert edit image. So maybe we'll upload this windmills image. I'll hit open, start upload. Here it is added to my folder. Here's my preview. I can insert it. Again, I'll add my description. And there's my image. So I've now uploaded this windmills image, but I've only uploaded it to the OU campus. I haven't published it out yet. So keep in mind, there is a bit of a caveat here. As soon as I hit save and exit, watch what happens. There's my windmills picture. It looks like a broken picture right now. Here's what's happening. This preview is giving me the most realistic rendition of what this page will look like on my live site. Because the image does not exist on my live site, this is what it would look like. That's okay. There are a couple of different things that I can basically do here. If I want to see what it would look like after the page has been published, I can go to preview. And I have an option here to see what the preview looks like by pulling the information from staging. Staging is OU campus. So I can still see a preview of what it would look like with the image. Make sure it all looks good. Everything's looking good, terrific, wonderful. Well, now I'm going to want to publish out the page. And when I publish, I get an additional option down here at the bottom. It's going to give me the option of including unpublished dependencies. So OU campus, relatively intelligent. It's recognizing, hey, there's a picture or there's a link or there's something on this page that is referencing another file that has not been published yet. Would you like to publish it? If I'm not sure exactly what that file is, I can click this View Files, and it'll tell me, yep, there's my windmills image. So when I publish this page, it'll actually publish out both the page and the image at the same time. I'll go ahead and add in my version description and click Publish. So now, when I click View in New Window, here's my live page. My image appears here too, because it published at the same time. Excellent. Good, good, good. A couple of additional things just to kind of make your life a little bit easier. Taking a look at this page, if I click where it says Properties, we talked about parameters already. Access is really more of an administrative level, so don't even worry about that one here. But what I want to point out to you is reminders. So if you are responsible for this particular page and you don't want to have to mentally keep track of all of it, you can set a reminder for yourself. You can set a scheduled reminder. So maybe I want to remember next week, Friday, not at 12 a.m. How about it? 12:15 p.m. And I can put in that reminder and the system will send me that message, send me the email as long as my email address is in the system. I can also set a stale reminder. So this one does not happen on a particular day. Instead, it keeps track of the changes on the page. So right now, the last published date was today. From today, I want the system to start counting. So if this page is not updated for 14 days, then it will send me out a stale reminder. So I want to make sure that this page is updated regularly. I want to make sure that it never goes more than 2 weeks without an update. This is an excellent option for me. If, say, next week, I publish out the page again and made a change, the system begins counting again. So it'll start over and then start again counting until it gets up to 14 days. Last thing that we have here in our list is our log. The log is going to tell me all of the individual changes or saves that happen. Sorry, we have a question. It says, can administrators force all pages to do the stale reminder at all? No. Stale reminder has to be set on a page-by-page basis. We do have a suggestion right now in our feedback form that has to do with setting a stale reminder on an entire section. So if that's something that you think would work well for your organization, you can essentially upvote it at our feedback form. And you can get to our feedback form by hovering over Help and going to Feedback. Good question. So my log here is going to tell me all of the different processes that have caused changes on this page. So I can see that I made a save from the WYSIWYG editor. I did a file publish. It doesn't tell me exactly what has changed here. For that, I need to do a version comparison. But this will let me know what changes or adjustments have been made by whom. Other things that I have here in my Page Actions toolbar, I have my page check. So if you do not have a publish button, you don't get to see these 4 buttons. You'll never see that dialog box. Instead, you send it to someone else. So I'd recommend if you have a submit button, click page check. You get the exact same checks. So you can check the page before you submit it to the next person. And you also have the ability here to save a version. So going to the versions list, this will give me a list of all of the different versions that have been created of this page. A version is automatically created when I hit publish. As you can see, I made changes for June monthly orientation. But if I want to kind of take a snapshot of all the changes that have happened so far, but not publish it out, I can save a version. So clicking on Save Version, again, allows me to do a version description. Bottom right-hand corner, Save Version. So here's the snapshot. Notice it is not highlighted green. I have not published it out. I've simply saved all of those changes in this version here. All right. Last thing that I wanted to mention to you guys, it kind of just has to do with almost etiquette inside OU Campus. Notice this prospective athlete's page is still checked out to me. I know that because the light bulb is still checked out. So maybe I went into the tickets page, I was going to make a change here, I started making a change, and then I wasn't really sure what change was supposed to be made, so yeah, that's not really the page I want to go to. I'm going to come back out. Maybe I opened up that side navigation to maybe make some changes. So now I have a whole bunch of different pages that are all checked out to me. When I log out, pages will not automatically check back in. This is done on purpose. Let's be honest, there are going to be some pages where it'll take you multiple days to get it up to speed or all the changes that you want on it. So these 3 pages that we're looking at here will always be checked out to me unless I publish them or I check them back into the system. Every time I log into OU Campus, before I log out, I click on my Gadget sidebar by clicking on that little plug icon, and I open up the My Checked Out Content gadget. Whoa. This gives me a listing of all of the files that are currently checked out to me. If they're checked out to me, they're locked to everyone else. So no one else has access to these guys. This is the moment where I would look at and think, do I need this or do I not? So do I really need that side navigation? Not really. I can click the light bulb from here and it'll automatically check back into the system. If I'm looking at a page and I think, I don't really remember which page that is, this path is a link. I can click on it and it'll bring me to the page where I can look at it and say, don't need that one either. Click the button, check it back into the system. So all of these is just a way to make sure that you're kind of maintaining good etiquette, making sure that the pages that you have are only the ones that you need, and the ones that you don't need, you can just check back into the system. All right, that essentially summarizes all the things I wanted to talk with you guys about today. Any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to put them into the Q&A section, and I'll be happy to answer them. And I'm going to go ahead and check all these things back into the system while we do. All right. So I'll continue to hold on for just a little bit longer, just in case any of you are currently typing out your questions. But if you have no further questions, I want to thank you very much for attending. And just to let you guys know, our next monthly orientation training is going to be on the second Friday in July. So that'll be July 13th. So if you want to go through it again, have another orientation, or if there are others at your school who maybe need to also go through either this or a refresher, feel free to go ahead and reference them there. All right, we do have a question here that has to do with ADA compliance. So can ADA compliance be forced? It depends which it is, or really what portions of the ADA compliance you're talking about. So the requirement for the decorative, or excuse me, the requirement for the alt text is enforced when I am putting in an image. So that, if I put in an image, I cannot save it or place it on page without a description. So it'll really come down to, is there something specific about the ADA compliance that you are curious about? So as you type, I guess I'll just talk. So images are forced this way. Oftentimes the actual HTML structure of your page is going to be designed with accessibility and compliance ideas already input. So that'll be something to make sure that you're taking up with your designer to make sure those things are being included in it. The different snippets, the different assets, those things you do have control over source code on. So again, as long as the source code is following all your compliance requirements, your snippets, your assets will also have that already set up. So that is another way. So perfect. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'm gonna wish you guys all a good rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend.